'Tis the capitalist season of unbridled romance consumerism, so I have compiled a list of 10 unhinged romantic comedies for you to dig into. Did I realize that all of these movies were directed by men when I composed it? Of course not. Was I surprised when I noticed the pattern? Of course not. I will also note that all of these movies are of the straight and pale variety, and the reason behind that is that this specific market is just very oversaturated by these types of movies. However, we on this channel are for equal opportunity unhinged stories, so feel free to leave your favorite unhinged rom-coms that are not mentioned in this video in the comments. But for now, let's take a moment to dissect these stories of the variety, just so we could collectively go, what the did I just watch? The mums, birds, and the bees talk in this movie is honestly based. Peggy Sue Got Married is a comedy drama from 1986 which stars Kathleen Turner as Peggy, a woman who faints while being crowned queen of her high school reunion and travels back in time to when she was in her senior year of high school. Nicolas Cage plays her high school sweetheart and soon-to-be ex-husband. I do find his performance pretty amusing considering he only agreed to take the role if he can play it how he wants, and legend says he was very difficult to work with on set. He actually successfully sued Turner for defamation because she kept saying he drove drunk and stole a chihuahua, and honestly, that's kind of funny to me. Not the drunk driving part, but the chihuahua part. Imagine you're a chihuahua and one day Nick Cage just dog naps you. Allegedly. This movie is arguably one of the milder unhinged stories on this list, but what made me put it on here was that it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola after he made the first two Godfathers, The Conversation and Apocalypse Now. However, I do feel like there are a number of narrative decisions when it comes to teenage Peggy that are a little strange, and the whole grandpa is apparently a Masonic wizard and we're just not gonna talk about it was also kind of weird to me. Roger Ebert was so pleased with this movie that he gave it 4 stars in 1986. When I was reading his review of it, this paragraph of him explaining the narrative differences between Peggy Sue Got Married and Back to the Future caught my eye, so I want to read it to you. In Back to the Future, the hero traveled backwards through time to meet his own parents when they were teenagers. In Peggy Sue, the heroine travels backwards to enter her own body as a teenager, and she enters it with her 42-year-old mind still intact. Now, I'm not sure if you hear what I hear, but as a writer, please take a moment and think about how you are writing. We all have biases. We are all ignorant in some ways, but we can learn from old Roger here and be less creepy about teenage girls, even when they are fictional and portrayed by a 32-year-old Turner. At one point during pre-production, there was a possibility that Penny Marshall, who later went on to direct A League of Their Own, would direct the movie, and it's honestly pretty fun to ponder over what this movie would have looked like in the hands of a female director. I definitely think it would have been a completely different movie if Marshall had directed it.
Peggy, you know what a penis is. Stay away from it.
This movie walked so Lars and the real girl could run. Mannequin is an American fantasy rom-com from 1987 that stars Andrew McCarthy as Jonathan, an unemployed artist who gets a job as a window dresser, Kim Cattrall as Emmy, a mannequin that Jonathan sculpted in a previous job who comes to life with the soul of a girl from ancient Egypt, Estelle Getty as the department store owner, and James Spader, who plays an evil executive twink who may or may not be working for a competing department store. As you might deduce from the character breakdown, Jonathan has a whirlwind relationship with the mannequin as he saves a failing department store, one window display at a time. And there are shenanigans. At one point in the movie, a little boy flies away with a huge helium balloon. It is never addressed again. This movie does have a number of questionable writing decisions. Its depiction of ancient Egypt is terrible. There's a Pandora's box worth of topics to discuss regarding the objectification of women, and I'm sure there's some video essay out there that goes into all of this and more in detail. However, there's also a lot of moments that are really silly in a lighthearted way, and I am unable to watch this movie thinking that all these characters are straight. Every single one of them is a little gay to me, except Jonathan. He's a special boy. There's a lot you could say about Jonathan as a character, but you know what? The bar is in hell, but at least he is not homophobic.
So, you like your new assignment?
Could have been worse. Could have put me on with a bigoted jerk.
I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and this is my best friend, Valentina. She's an ally. Talk, Valentina.
Ally.
Does this man need psychiatric attention? Possibly. Do I understand his artistic struggle? For sure, yes. And that shit can put you in a mental ward if you're not careful. As a side note, I do enjoy Estelle Getty in this, even though she doesn't really get much to do, but her Sophia in Golden Girls just really reminds me of my grandmother, so she'll always have a special place in my heart. All of this does explain why this movie received mostly negative reviews upon its release, and also why it has gained a cult following, which, at least in my head, makes it an interesting enough watch. Overall, Mannequin did make me chuckle a number of times at how stupid it is, but I definitely think the people of Egypt should be compensated by Hollywood for everything that they have done over the years. Have you seen this movie? What did you think of it? The main conflict of this movie is that Gina Davis just wants her fiancé to f*** her, and he just won't. He'll f*** everyone else, but not her. Directed by Julian Temple, who is known for making the music videos for songs like God Save the Queen, Do You Really Wanna Hurt Me, and Smooth Operator, among many others, Earth Girls Are Easy is a sci-fi musical romantic comedy from 1988 that struts a stellar cast with Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, and Damon Wayans. In the movie, Valerie, who is having relationship troubles with her cheating fiancé, finds a spaceship with 3 aliens crashed in her pool. When the aliens are shaved, they turn out to be handsome men, so Valerie takes them out on the town where they get into a bunch of shenanigans. This production definitely went through a couple of rough patches. It was dropped when Madonna and Molly Ringwald turned down the role of Valerie. The producer has said that the first cut we had of the picture was a problem, and it ended up being a box office flop. So why am I talking about this movie? While the narrative isn't necessarily the brightest or most compelling, I usually do enjoy watching this in a slightly brain-dead kind of way. The effects are pretty entertaining, a lot of random stuff happens, and I definitely relate to Carrie's character tweaking after he kisses a woman. If you know, you know. The silliness of this movie makes me really miss low-budget movies that give actors a chance to play around with characters in strange circumstances. Would I even be talking about this movie if Goldblum, Carrey, and Wayans hadn't fooled around in these colorful fursuits? I don't really have any other thoughts about this movie other than it's fun and it's a goofy watch. What do you think of Earth Girls Are Easy? Do you enjoy fun, or is it a waste of time? I really do understand why Robert Downey Jr.'s character banged his head on that lamppost. I would too. In this 1989 fantasy romantic comedy, we stumble into the miraculous world of incest from beyond the grave. Chances Are follows the life after death story of Louis Jeffries III, a district attorney who dies after getting hit by a car and is reborn as Alex Finch. Alex grows up to study at Yale, where he meets Miranda, who just happens to be the daughter of Louis Jeffries III. After graduation, Alex tries to get a job at the Washington Post, where he meets Philip, who takes on kind of the role of a mentor and invites him to dinner at a friend's house. There, Alex meets Corinne and remembers that they were married in his past life and that Philip used to be his best friend. And of course, Miranda shows up because it's her house. What are the chances? Directed by Emil Ardolino, who is known for directing Dirty Dancing and Sister Act, and starring Sybil Shepherd, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan O'Neal, and Mary Stuart Masterson, Chances Are isn't a terrible movie in terms of film form, which is probably why it received mostly positive reviews upon its release. But it just has so many points in the narrative that made me go, why? Why is this happening? No. The heaven in this is so homogenous that it honestly made me a bit nervous because it's at the start of the movie and I was like, I don't know where this is going. And I don't even believe in heaven and hell like that, but you know, eventually there are a couple of black extras and Omar, so it's probably okay. There were so many moments where I actually had to pause the movie and take a lap.
What's the matter?
I haven't done it in 23 years.
If you break down the relationship dynamics in this movie, it just sounds weird, okay? Corinne is still emotionally attached to her dead husband. Alex is her dead husband. Philip was third-wheeling their marriage, even when Louis was alive, and is still in love with Corinne, and is a father figure to Miranda. And Miranda likes Alex. That even felt sticky to describe. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know what else to say about this movie. I guess it explores themes like love and reincarnation, but I low-key would like whatever memory serum Omar injected Alex with so I can forget the narrative. Just wait until you see that hammerhead shark jump scare. Joe vs. the Volcano is an American romantic comedy from 1990 that was written and directed by John Patrick Shanley and starred Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. In the movie, Joe Banks is diagnosed with a lethal disease called a brain cloud while working at a mind-numbing factory for a dreadful boss. Joe quits his job, and just as he's figuring out his next moves, a rich industrialist hires him to jump into a volcano on a tiny island in the Pacific Ocean as a sacrifice so that the locals allow him to mine minerals. In exchange, the rich guy will pay for anything he wants and needs while he is still alive. I'd never heard of this film and was all hee hee ha ha going into it after reading the synopsis, but then the first 15 minutes about the soul-sucking nature of workplaces under capitalism and unhelpful doctor's appointments just hit home too hard. The narrative deals with themes like mortality and life's purpose in relation to the working class in quite interesting ways, and the scope of adventure that Joe goes on was pretty fun to watch. Shanley does have extensive experience in being a playwright, and he also did win an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Moonstruck, which I have made a video on, so it makes sense to see depth in the story. But if I did find some insight in the narrative, why did I add this to the unhinged rom-coms list? Well, that is because if we frame the movie around the romance, then the story becomes a little funny to me. During the course of the film, Joe is involved with 3 women, all played by Meg Ryan, and Patricia, who we also see featured on the poster, comes into play in the final act when they board a yacht, get caught in a typhoon, and get shipwrecked on a makeshift raft for days. Patricia is unconscious for most of this, and once they arrive on the island, they get married. I definitely feel like categorizing this movie as a romantic comedy was a marketing mistake. Yes, I guess it has some romance in it, but it certainly isn't the main focus when it comes to its themes. The movie's own poster sports the tagline, "An Average Joe, an adventurous comedy. Make it make sense." And of course there's the whole topic of, why would you cast Abe Vigoda from all the actors in the world to play a native chief from an island in the Pacific Ocean? Have you heard of this movie? What did you think about it? Do you remember the shot of the hammerhead shark? Because I sure do. This is one of those rare movies where Mike Myers plays kind of a normal guy. So in my head, I just keep calling the character Mike Myers. So I Married an Axe Murderer is a dark rom-com from 1993 where a commercially successful beat poet in San Francisco named Charlie starts to suspect that his wife Harriet is a serial killer who murders her husbands during their honeymoons with an axe. It probably doesn't help that she works as a butcher and acts really sus about her past. The movie was directed by Thomas Schlam and stars Mike Myers and Nancy Travis. Also, Brenda Fricker, who played the pigeon lady in Home Alone 2, plays Mike Myers' mom, and Mike Myers plays Mike Myers' dad.
Hello!
This movie doesn't really feature comedy that I find hilarious, but I feel like I didn't really mind the narrative too much. I actually hadn't seen this in probably 20 years, and I had forgotten the story enough that the plot twist ended up being a surprise to me, which I quite enjoyed. However, I cannot get over the fact that the guy was literally a beat poet. Also, 50% of the movie's soundtrack is the song There She Goes. They play it so many times. When I started watching this movie, I noticed this name during the title sequence, which felt so familiar. Richard Halsey. Richard Halsey. Where on earth do I know this name from? All right, from the 3 other movies that are on this list. Richard Halsey was not only the editor on So I Married an Axe Murderer, but he also edited Mannequin, Earth Girls Are Easy, and Joe vs. the Volcano. Now, am I saying that the guy who won an Academy Award for editing Rocky is the sole reason why these movies are unhinged? Of course not. That would be nuts. But I do find it funny that so many movies from the same editor ended up on this list. My last random observations about this movie. Alan Arkin was probably my favorite part of this movie. He was really funny. I had totally forgotten about the existence of thigh masters, and this movie unlocked the memory of this thing just laying around my house in the 90s and no one ever using it. As someone who has served probably hundreds of Scottish breakfasts to customers and has eaten a deep-fried Mars bar while shit-faced, I can neither confirm nor deny the statement that most Scottish food is based on a dare. Have you seen this movie? What do you think about haggis? If this came out in 2026, there would be so many fan edits of Frasier's character to Sabrina Carpenter's Man-Child. 100%. So how I came across this movie was that my local physical media store was selling it for a whopping 99 cents. I'd never heard about it before, but I figured I'd give it a go since it starred Brendan Fraser, Alicia Silverstone, Christopher Walken, and Sissy Spacek. Blast from the Past is an American romantic comedy adventure movie from 1999 that was directed by Hugh Wilson, who is known for Police Academy and First Wives Club. The story follows a 35-year-old man called Adam who has spent his whole life in a nuclear bunker because his parents mistook an airplane crash for nuclear war. He ascends to explore San Fernando Valley for the first time in 1995 in order to secure food and supplies. There, Adam meets and hires Eve to help him out with that, but he also wants to find himself a wife because this guy is so horny. And honestly, who can blame him? He's just spent 35 years in a bunker with his parents. I could not do that. This is very clearly a modern retelling of Adam and Eve. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of them. They are big in Abrahamic religions. And while these types of stories can be kind of tedious at times, I actually really enjoy the humor in this movie. The reason the script works for me is because the whole concept of Adam and Eve isn't used to teach a specific moral lesson, but rather it uses Adam's naive nature to show that what we consider normal is actually learned, and that leads to some moments that genuinely made me laugh out loud.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for always being happy. What?
Gay.
This movie is extremely well cast, and I honestly really love Walken and Spacek in this. They are incredibly funny and so quotable.
But he's still such a baby.
He's a man.
He's a baby man.
I probably giggled a little too much at those jokes, and also definitely way too much when I made this edit.
I so sexy, you're so dumb, and I'll survive the years so long. If I'm not there, it won't get done.
I choose to blame your love. My gosh! These commies are brilliant. You have to hand it to them.
I saw this Letterboxd review of this movie that said it was better than the Green Book, and from the minds of the Farrelly brothers, who also brought you movies like Dumb and Dumber, Me, Myself, and Irene, and Shallow Hal, There's Something About Mary is a rom-com from 1998 that stars Cameron Diaz, Ben Stiller, and Matt Dillon. The story follows Ted, a magazine writer who wants to find his high school sweetheart because he still has feelings for her. Ted hires private investigator Pat to locate her, which he does, but he lies to Ted about Mary because Pat himself becomes enamored with her. What follows is a bunch of shenanigans that mainly involves men stalking and lying to Mary in order to win over her affection. The movie was a huge success and earned $369.9 million to its budget of $23 million, making it the third highest grossing movie in America in 1998. I remember seeing this movie on TV quite often in the early 2000s, and I always felt like you had to be a little sneaky to watch this as a child because of the subject matter. Whether a 10-year-old should have been watching this is another question, but most 90s Eastern European babies will know that child rearing was a different ballgame back then. The humor in this is so strange to me, and though I'm not a hater of slapstick and raunchy humor, it mainly just makes me uncomfortable because I see it follows a narrative form that could hit, but mostly I just got sad that Mary had to be around all those men. However, I feel like if you're someone who enjoys watching those video compilations of people falling and getting hurt, then you might enjoy this. That's all you get about this movie because I am over it. But this won't be the last you hear from the Farrelly brothers, so consider yourself warned.
You know what? Forget it. Just forget the whole thing, all right? Okay.
No one is dancing to the same beat in that club scene, and that tells me exactly who this movie was made for. The 2001 rom-com Shallow Hal stars Jack Black and Gwyneth Paltrow and follows a sexist man named Hal who falls in love with a fat woman after being hypnotized by a life coach in order to learn how to appreciate people's inner beauty. While Paltrow had to wear a fat suit for the role, IMDb trivia tells me that Jack Black had to lose weight for the role, which is information that made me go, huh. The movie had huge success in the box office, earning around $140 million to its budget of $40 million, which really tracks considering how often I remember seeing this movie on TV when I was in primary school. I rewatched this movie for the first time in probably 20 years with one of my friends, and about 15 minutes into it, she turned to me and said, "This is a 2-hour movie." And it really was. It really was. And we were there for the whole 113 minutes of it. Shallow Hal was directed by the same guys as There's Something About Mary, which I just discussed earlier, and while I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of their style of humor, I do find this movie a little more palatable than the previous one. The fat jokes are definitely a very on-point reflection of early 2000s misogyny, and the notion that someone's inner beauty visualized would be a skinny version of themselves is kind of dumb. Like, why can't my inner beauty look like something gnarly, like a biblically accurate angel or something? I guess at least Hal learns his lesson at the end. I'm sort of struggling to think of anything else significant to say about this movie, because, to be honest, I watched it a while ago, and now reflecting on it, I feel quite indifferent towards it. Do you remember watching this movie when it first came out? How do you think it has aged? On Letterboxd, I said that I wish Paulson would punch me like that, and I stand by that statement. Sarah, hit me up. Literally. So this last movie on the list of 10 unhinged rom-coms, I actually really enjoyed. I think it's kind of underrated. But the reason I put this on the unhinged list is because of that monologue during the film's climax. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, then watch the movie. I don't want to spoil it for you. Down with Love is a 2003 rom-com by Peyton Reed that stars Renee Zellweger and Ewan McGregor. It's a playful imitation of 60s bedroom comedies such as Pillow Talk that starred Doris Day and Rock Hudson. The story follows Barbara Novak, a woman who writes a book that encourages women to prioritize their freedom, enjoy sex without commitment, and use chocolate to replace their need for men. When she arrives in New York to promote her book, a well-known journalist called Catcher Block continuously stands her up thinking she's an old spinster. Novak tells him she'll never speak to him again and goes on to promote her book. When the book blows up, Catcher sees that he was mistaken and starts posing as an astronaut with a southern accent to prove that Novak actually does not stand by her book. I actually hadn't seen this until very recently when I found the DVD in a local thrift store, and it was quite a pleasant surprise. Zellweger and McGregor are perfectly cast in this and do a wonderful job subverting these stereotypical 60s rom-com characters. Sarah Paulson's and David Hyde Pierce's characters are also great, and it honestly tickles me that two now openly LGBTQ plus actors play these roles. The cinematography, editing, sets, and costumes are also fantastically constructed as a modern play on the 60s rom-com style. If you're interested in hearing me talk about this movie in more detail, check out my last week's video, How Down With Love Nailed the Style of 60s Bedroom Comedies. I had a lot of fun writing about it, and I hope you enjoy it too. But if you don't feel like going into it, then for the conclusion, I really enjoyed the perspective Mick Glazel gave on the movie in 2003. Down With Love forces us to step back and see our own preconceptions and mores. It slyly reminds us that our modern perspective, like every modern perspective that preceded it, is doomed to obsolescence and isn't some final stage of enlightened social thought. What a fantastic final thought to finish this video with. That's today's 10 movies. Have you seen any of them? Which is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.